Mr. President, I got a couple of final thoughts here. One, there might be some people surprised that we did not offer any specific amendments relating to reducing gun violence. I will note that the chairman of the committee was quoted in the media today as saying that these are the kind of bills that should go through the process of the committee as separate bills and be passed out of the Judiciary Committee for us to consider them. Well, I will say only, members, that after a year and a half, we're still waiting for a Judiciary Committee hearing on the Universal Background Check Bill and the Red Flag or Extreme Risk Protection Order bills. The only thing standing in the way of those hearings is the will of the majority, or at least the majority leadership that's making those committee decisions. With regard to the budget, frankly, I'm a bit embarrassed on behalf of Chairman Limmer and the GOP, because I know that Chairman Limmer is chafing at the budget target for this bill. Let there be no mistake, this is a cut budget. In real terms, as anyone who took Economics 101 understands, this is a cut budget, because in real terms, after you account for inflation or the increase in fixed costs that have to be paid for, like electricity, heat, food, when you pay for those, in real terms, you simply cannot maintain the same service levels. You've got other places in the budget that you have to cut. And we're not in a deficit year, so why are we treating our budget like we are in a deficit year? And in particular, why are we treating our budget with regard to Judiciary and Public Safety and the Department of Corrections like we are in a deficit year? We are cutting the independent third branch of state government, the constitutionally independent branch of government in our judiciary. We are cutting our state system for solving and preventing crime. We are cutting our system that houses and treats our offenders, 95% of whom are going to be released back into our communities. And then we're also cutting the system that supervises them when they are released back into the communities. We will pay one way or the other, now or later. Eventually, we will pay the price, either in increased costs of incarceration, increased costs as people move through the court system, charged with more crimes. We will pay the price as victims of those crimes in human loss and in financial loss. But we will pay. The only question is, do we pay now with a responsible budget that treats the prisoners when they're in our system with chemical dependency treatment, mental health services, sex offender treatment, so when they are released back into the community, they are much less likely to reoffend? Do we pay now to have adequate resources to use known, proven tactics and current technology to fight crime? Members, sometimes I feel like we are in an artificial bubble here. We seem to think that we've got this only $25 million increase over base as our budget target, and that's something that's locked in stone. But as Senator Marty said, these are artificially created parameters. We in the legislature decide our own revenue levels. We decide whether to cut taxes or raise taxes, whether to cut fees and fines or whether to raise fees and fines. And we can have legitimate policy discussions about what level of fees or fines or taxes or tuition, as we talked about earlier this evening, is appropriate to fund the level of services that we decide on behalf of the people we represent that we want to provide to the people of Minnesota. But we decide the size of the pie. And we also decide where to put the money that's in the pie and how big each slice of pie will be. And because we decide, this budget indeed itself reflects the majority's decisions and priorities. They've decided how they want to spend the money. They've decided how they want to raise the money and how to spend it. This blueprint that we have in front of us cannot be simply written off as a negotiating position. That's too superficial. This is the majority's preferred budget, their priorities, their moral statement about how we ought to be spending, raising money and spending money in the state of Minnesota. As many before me have said, a budget is a moral document. Members, this budget is seriously lacking.